Hello and a very warm welcome to World Panorama, the show that gives you a 360-degree view of major global events of the week. I'm Sana Khan. Before we bring you detailed reports, here's a look at this week's top stories. Arab League meets in Baghdad, calls on Syria to implement UN peace plan soon. BRICS nations stress upon the need for global economic order, indicating a shift in power equations as well. Pope Benedict XVI calls for greater freedoms as he ends his Cuba tour, wraps up his visit by meeting revolutionary icon Fidel Castro. And Tiger Woods wins first PGA title in 30 months, with Masters just days away. Can he get back to player who once ruled golf? Those were the top stories this week. Now, the Arab League held its meeting in Baghdad for the first time in more than 20 years. Fewer than half of Arab world leaders turned up, along with the UN Secretary General. Baghdad was in virtual lockdown due to the security risk, and there were at least 2 explosions in the city, some distance from the conference itself. At the top of the agenda was the crisis in neighboring Syria. What transpired in Baghdad? Is there a consensus on Syria? To answer some of these questions, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Waiel Awwad, senior journalist. Thanks so much, sir, for joining me on the show today. Before we get to him, take a look at this detailed report. Arab leaders have urged a peaceful solution to the crisis in Syria at a landmark summit in Baghdad, marred by a mortar attack near the Iranian embassy as the meeting opened. Arab leaders have endorsed a UN-backed peace plan for Syria, which they said should be implemented immediately and completely.
We can say there was hope when the Syrian government accepted the 6-point plan proposed by the joint envoy of United States and Arab League, Kofi Annan. We have to see the implementation, and this must be completed and sincere and immediate. And that has not happened yet, but God willing, it will happen.
Arab leaders pressed President Bashar al-Assad to act quickly on a UN-backed peace plan he has agreed to, having dropped their demand that he give up power. This even as continued clashes between Syrian security and rebels killed 15 people on Thursday.
We reiterate the call for a peaceful solution to end the crisis in light of the Arab League's resolutions and with respect for the Syrian people's desire to choose their system through democratic means in a way that meets their aspirations without foreign intervention. They should take advantage of the efforts of international envoys, especially the joint envoy Kofi Annan.
United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon also kept up pressure on Assad, saying he must put into action his acceptance to the 6-point peace plan.
I share Mr. Annan's view that this is an important initial step that could bring an end to violence and the bloodshed, provide aid to those people who are suffering, and create an environment conducive to a political dialogue that would fulfill the long-held legitimate aspirations of Syrian people. It is essential that President Assad put those commitments into immediate effect.
In Damascus, Assad celebrated as Annan's plan doesn't call for him to step down at all, but only to halt fighting and begin a dialogue in the country for reform. It was this limited demand that brought approval for the 6-point plan from the Syrian president and from his allies in Moscow and Beijing. All right, Dr. Awwad, let me start by asking you, did anything substantial really come out of the Arab League meet? If so, then what and how can it really change Syria for the better?
I don't think there was a major things in the Arab League. Syria have already rejected the Arab League, whatever resolution they have come up. They said it's none of our concern because Syria was excluded from this meeting for the first time, unprecedented manner. So Syria felt that they have been kept out, so nobody should discuss Syria. Right. Nevertheless, Syria has been topping the agenda in the absence of Damascus. But because of the American pressure, because of the Western pressure on the Arab League that have brought it to the table, and they have realized that they failed militarily by arming the insurgents in Syria. Therefore, there was a call from the United States and the West that there is no military intervention in Syria. Let us search for a face-saving formula. So the face-saving formula was that the Arab League The Ban Ki-moon mission should be supported, a peaceful, a political solution, taking the government of Syria as a part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Right. Also, Dr. Awwad, but many nations met in Baghdad, but there was a split in consensus over there because, some nations called for extreme action as far as Syria is concerned. Some nations are calling for a dialogue.
I think the rhetoric by some of the Gulf states have already been heard before this meeting during the Friends of Syria conference that held in Tunisia. They've raised their voices. They have come openly that they are willing to arm the insurgents. So therefore, it is an armed military interference infiltrated by the Al-Qaeda and the terrorist group who hijacked the real demand of the Syrian people. Syrian government have no concern to the Syrian government. These issues, what the Syrian government wants from the international community is to keep a halt to all these countries ambitious of doing an adventure in Syria by allowing the Syrian government to implement the political reforms and the economical reforms. If the Syrian government failed, then fair enough, then we have a say to say. But let the Syrian people decide their own future and their own, destiny.
Right. With that, let me also bring in the, 6-point plan that has been put forth by Kofi Annan. What do you think about that 6-point plan? Is it really implementable? Will Syria be able to implement it? Because the president of Syria is known to make huge promises, but then, how much difficult or easy is it to put those points into action? I
think you said it rightly, Sana. The Syrian president made promises, but he implemented. And now to give him the benefit of doubt, he has accepted this 6 points from Kofi Annan, because these are the Syrian government calling. We call for cessation of all violence. Everybody, the whole international community knows that there are armed groups, perpetrators who have killed more than 3,000 soldiers and security officers. So the Syrian government, as a responsible state, which have led for a 40 years stability in a vulnerable region, now with military intervention and by insurgents, by Al-Qaeda elements, they're trying to destabilize the country. It is the responsibility of the state to bring back normalcy into the state. So when the international community, speaking in one voice of cessation of all violence from both the sides, allowing the political reforms, sit across the table, have a roundtable dialogue with all the strata of the Syrian society, then implement. I think that's what we want. We never wanted to Benghazi-like. We didn't want to see the sectarian violence in Syria, and nobody wanted to see that. In fact, the whole Syrians are aware and conscious of the plot that the West and the US are planning to implement with the hand of the Arab puppet regimes.
But with that, the pressure, you think is going to stay up from the West on Bashar al-Assad to step down, even though, you've said it earlier that he's not likely to go. He's still going to remain at the helm.
See, the Syrian government have the support of the public. The people, 55 to 60%, according to their own survey, still are behind the president.
Yeah, in fact, we saw him in that visit, so much backing that
he gave them a message very clearly when he went to Homs in your report, and he told the international community and the Arab leaders, your plot to topple the regime have failed. Your military intervention to cause bleeding of the Syrian people in the street failed. We are the Syrians who decide our future. The international community now is supporting the roadmap of Syria to go into reforms and implement it. Even Russia and China and the BRICS people have already welcomed the dialogue and welcomed Kofi Annan. I think if we all support the international community, stand one hand behind Kofi Annan, the Syrian government should be in a position to implement. It is also we have to take in consideration that those countries who have supported with the most sophisticated arms to the rebels should be seized to do so, should be halted from doing so. So the government and the people of Syria should not be bleed at the cost of the external intention and ambition, vested interest to toppling the regime or for regime change in Syria.
Right. We've seen so much really happen, Dr. Awwad, in the past few months as far as Syria is concerned. So many international bodies coming together, trying to find a resolution. But at the end of it all, there's one question that the people of Syria, as well as the world, that is concerned about Syria, wants to know. Is there hope for Syria and for this crisis to end in the near future?
I think that's what we all, the Syrians, are hoping, that the Syrian people will stand up again will heal the wound that they have created, whether it is from the army side, whether it is from outside, whether from within the society. I think the Syrian people understand what we wanted really for our future. We are the only country who enjoyed more than 40 years of stability in a vulnerable region. So I think the Syrian people understand, and we are very ambitious. We wanted really to go forward and contribute what we have done in the Arab world affairs, and also in continuity of Syria steadfastness against any kind of occupation in the region. So unless the Syrian government stick to its own externals also policy and show to the world that it has a sovereign political decision to take on the Syrian issues, have proved again and again that the Syrian government will be able to lead the people of Syria out of such a crisis created from the outside world.
All right, Dr. Awwad, we leave the discussion at a positive note that yes, there is hope for Syria and we might just see a resolution, because the international community sure is concerned about what's happening there. Thanks so much, Dr. Awwad, for joining me here today on this discussion. We're heading for a short break now.